Hello and welcome to a new game from the TCEC Superfinal. This is game 39 and AllieStein is white in a French defense. Stockfish is black, of course. And here now after d5, knight c3, we have the classical variation with knight f6. Alternatives are bishop b4, the winaware variation, which is quite bloody and sharp. Or d takes on e4, which is the Rubinstein variation, is a bit more solid. But in this one we have knight f6, and here white also has some choices. He can either take on d5, push this pawn, or pin this knight with bishop b5. In this one we have e5, and now after knight d7 we also have f4, strengthening the center, to which black now reacts normally with c5, attacking white's center and hoping for some more activity. Black needs to attack white center because these pawns are restricting the black forces. We now have knight f3, knight c6, and now there's a big fight over the d4 square. All of their moves are about controlling that square. We have now c takes, knight takes, and bishop c5, and now queen d2, preparing to castle long. Short castles, long castles, and now a6, and this is the end of the book. And since they castled on opposite sides of the board, they both will try to storm the enemy's king. Stockfish will try b5, b4, and AllieStein will try h4, h5, g4, and so on. There are many games in this position. One of the main moves here is knight b3, attacking this bishop, hoping for a bishop exchange when black's dark squares would be weaker. But instead of taking, we have bishop e7, and here in this position AllieStein is already very happy with his position. He evaluates this at +1 right out of the opening. Stockfish says it's equal. The game now continued with h4. As mentioned, when they castle on opposite sides, they try to usually storm each other's king. And the plan here is to play a5 and weaken the dark squares in black's camp. We have b5 counterattacking h5, and here h6 is possible but not very good, even though g4, g5 can't immediately happen because pawn takes, and then white loses d5 pawn. But eventually white will be able to get that in, and then white's attack is faster. So instead of h6, an alternative is b4, but in this game we have knight a5, planning to go to c4, attacking these two. But AllieStein now continued with h6, and Stockfish replied with g6. There are no alternatives to g6. Black can't really allow white to take this pawn, because then white's attack is just too easy. The queen goes to g3, the rook sacks itself on h7, bishop d3, and the other rook comes to h1, and black would be mated quite soon. So g6 is forced, but this weakens the dark squares, and now keeping the dark squared bishops on the board is even more important for black. We have now king b1, which is always an important move when white castles queenside. This not only removes the king from the open c file, but it also defends a2. Now we have knight c4, and this is the moment when white usually parts with his light squared bishop. Otherwise black takes the dark squared bishop, and that wouldn't be very wise for white. Black would get very good play on the dark squares, and white also needs his dark squared bishop to attack black's weaknesses here on the king side, especially now that they are weakened. So white usually takes this knight out, and black has to make a choice now how to recapture. Taking with the b pawn looks very tempting since it opens the b file, but actually after knight d4 it is not so easy for black to develop an attack here. He has basically two ideas here. One is to put pressure on b2, and the other one is to put pressure on c3, but none of these are really giving black much. For example, after queen c7, knight c6 was threatened. King a1 is very good, and after rook b8 and g4, let's say, white is trying to get in f5. Queen b6 is one idea to put pressure on b2, but white has rook b1 and everything is nicely defended. And a5, a4, a3 is just too slow. White has f5 with complications favoring white. Bishop a3 also is nothing. The pawn can just take it and white wins. So this wouldn't be so great. Instead of queen b7, the other idea is to play bishop b4 and then put pressure on c3. But after knight f3 and queen a5, white can just simply play bishop d4, guard this knight, and again it's not so easy for black to increase the pressure. One idea is knight c5 to try to attack that pinned knight, but white can just unpin, and then after knight a4 exchange the knights and then play c3, and after bishop back again b2 can be easily guarded laterally with the rooks, and it's very difficult for black to do anything. One idea is to play rook b5 with the idea rook a5 and then applying pressure on a2, when if white has to play a3 then he's lost, because then bishop can take on a3 and black wins. But with the pawn on a2 is not so easy, and now here rook a5 can be nicely met with bishop b6 denying the a5 square to the rook, and it's not so easy for black to make progress here. If he exchanges the dark squared bishops, then yes, he can play rook a5, but now white can also play a3 because there's no bishop to sack itself on a3. So b takes on c4, even though it looks tempting, it doesn't seem to lead to much for black. So that's why here Stockfish took with the d pawn, and now b4 is possible, and then all kind of complications with b3 or c3, and this gives black a bit more chances to open up the white king. The game now continued with knight d4, and now we have b4 immediately. Knight c6, attacking queen and bishop fails because of b takes on c3, counter-attacking the queen on d2, and black just quite simply wins a piece. So knight c6 doesn't work, we have knight e4, and now we have c3, immediately attacking the queen. And in this position, taking this pawn on c3 would be good for white if black would recapture with the pawn, because then this would activate the queen, and knight c6 is threatened. And after rook b8 check, king a1, bishop b4, queen c4, knight c6 is still a threat, and white has very nicely centralized pieces and very active pieces, while black still lacks development and activity, and white also has an extra pawn on c2, so this wouldn't be very good for black. However, after b takes on c3, black is not forced to take on c3 right away. He can first activate with queen c7 and moves like rook b8 and so on, and if white now takes on b4, then bishop b4 is very good, when of course the queen can take the bishop. So he has to play c3, and now after bishop e7, knight d6, bishop b7, king a1, rook b8, c4, black has a nice blockading square here on c5, and he also has the open b5 to work with. It's not so easy for white now to concentrate on a kingside attack. Black has too much activity on the queen side. The black is actually quite well. So after c3, instead of taking the pawn, AllieStein just simply played queen d3, maintaining the threat of knight c6, and now we have queen c7, and in this position AllieStein already values this position as winning for white, plus 2.7, and Stockfish kind of agrees, plus 1.2. The problem here is that after knight d6, this knight is a monster here, and black can't really take him out, because after pawn takes, this pawn is untouchable. If queen takes pawn, then black loses immediately. After knight f5, attacking the queen, after queen takes, the knight saves himself with this knight e7 check, and then after rook takes on d3, white has a lot of threats. First of all, white threatens to take out this bishop with the knight and then win this knight on d7, and black can't really defend the knight because rook a7 is guarded by the bishop, rook d8 also fails, because of bishop d4, and white has a mate in 4 here. So the knight can be defended, and if you move the knight away, then bishop d4 again ends the game, as f6 doesn't help, just check and then mate on the back rank. So after bishop takes and pawn takes, this pawn can be taken, but after something like queen b7, white stands very well here. He can just play knight f3, and eventually he will get some chances on this diagonal, and black has nothing in return. The material is equal, this pawn is dangerous, and especially this diagonal is very dangerous for black. So after knight d6, Stockfish just ignored that knight for now and played c takes on b2, and now we have queen e4 going for some tactics, and AllieStein here is very happy because he already sees that he has a completely winning game here. The problem here is that the rook is attacked, but also knight c6 is a threat with attack on e7, and Stockfish couldn't find something better here than knight b6. Now indeed knight c6 is not that great, because now the bishop is defended by the queen, and black could play here knight d5 and he would be fine. But unfortunately for Stockfish, AllieStein has here a very nice blow with knight b5 attacking the queen, and black only has 2 choices here and none of them is good. One of them is queen b8 and the other one is to take the knight. Stockfish chose the knight, but now after bishop b6 we transpose anyway in the other line, the queen has to go to b6, because if the queen takes bishop, then black loses the rook on a8. So we have queen b8, but now just simply bishop c5, and black's queenside pawns are all very weak and ripe for collection. Stockfish continued with bishop d7, bishop takes on b4, rook a6, rook h3, and now queen a8, attacking a2 and also trying to exchange the queens. We have queen takes, rook takes, and now just simply a3, and these rooks are now kind of misplaced on the a file. The a3 pawn and the b4 bishop are giving a very stable queenside here for white, and the rooks will have to find something else to do. We have now bishop c6. Stockfish tries to activate the bishops, and actually after g4 and f6 he's doing a very good job. f6 weakens e6, but that pawn can be defended by this bishop, and f6 now allows the dark squared bishop to get active. We have pawn takes, bishop takes, and now rook e3 attacking this pawn, bishop takes on d5, and look at these bishops, they are very nice, but they don't coordinate very well with these rooks. We have g5, bishop h8, and now rook d3, and here Stockfish tries a last trick on the a file with rook a4, hoping for rook takes, pawn takes, and then mate on a1 or bishop a2, but this is easily defended with c3, and now these rooks are very misplaced and they have to find something else, seek some activity somewhere else. The game continued with rook d8, and now we have knight b7. This bishop is pinned, so it can't take. Rook c8, and now finally the king takes this pawn on b2, and b5 is also weak and will be easily won here by AllieStein. We have rook a8, knight d6, rook f8, knight takes on b5. Finally the last pawn falls, and AllieStein has 2 passed pawns on the queen side. Knight c7 is also threatened. AllieStein wants to take this bishop, which is quite strong and gives some stability to black. We have rook c8, knight d6, rook f8, knight b5, rook c8, and now knight d4, king f7, and now knight c2. And again threatening knight d3 and taking this bishop. So we have bishop c6, knight e3, bishop b5, but the rook just simply moves away. Bishop a4, rook d3, rook e8, and now knight g4. And this knight is coming to e5, and white has an absolutely overwhelming positional advantage and also material advantage, because it has also these passed pawns. King g8, knight e5, bishop b5, rook d4, bishop a4, and now finally the c pawn is moving forward and intends to be a queen very soon. It's very hard to come up with something good here for Stockfish. He played here rook b8, giving up the e6 pawn, but really this pawn is just unstoppable. We have rook a7, king c3, rook c8, king d3, rook b8, rook d5, and AllieStein performed here a magnificent centralization of her pieces. We have now rook c8, rook d6, rook e8, rook b6, rook c7, bishop d6, rook a7, king d2, rook c8, rook d3, rook a8, and now finally c5. And from here the game didn't last for long, 2 more moves actually, because here now after rook c8, the game was finally adjudicated into AllieStein's favor, who by this win reduced the deficit to only 2 points in the standings. This looked like a very one-sided game here for AllieStein. I'm not sure exactly where Stockfish went wrong, but right from the start AllieStein was very optimistic about her position. Now in the end I would like to thank to Adolf, Todor, Radu and Guilherme for their contribution to my channel. Please subscribe, like and share, and check out some of the other videos. Thanks for watching and see you soon. Bye bye.